What if there is something in your room right now that silently blocks heaven's grace? Something so small, so familiar, that you pass by it every day, unaware that it offends the eyes of the Virgin Mary. In this sacred month of May, when the Church turns its gaze toward the Mother of God, many homes remain spiritually unprepared. And the tragedy is not in ignorance, but in indifference. Padre Pio once warned that the devil hides not only in temptation, but in objects, ordinary things placed near our beds, our prayer corners, our altars. Some of these items carry no blessing. Others, once holy, have been broken, forgotten, or treated like mere decoration. But worse still are the images that pretend to honor Mary while subtly distorting her face, her purity, her mission. These false images do not invite her presence, they repel it, and yet the Virgin comes. Every May, especially near the 13th, she visits hearts and homes that have consecrated themselves. She enters quietly, without spectacle. But she does not enter every room. There are thresholds she will not cross. Padre Pio knew this. He saw it in visions. He once said, "If Mary does not dwell in your room, it is because something else already does. So before you pray another Hail Mary, before you offer her flowers or candles, ask yourself, what have I placed before her gaze? Is your home ready to receive the Queen of Heaven, or has something else claimed that space?" This message is not to scare, but to awaken. Because May 13th draws near, and someone is watching. In every Catholic home, certain objects are placed with good intention, images of saints, rosaries, devotional statues, or tokens collected from pilgrimages. But Padre Pio taught that even sacred-looking items can become spiritual obstacles when they are misunderstood, misused, or spiritually compromised. One of the most overlooked yet spiritually dangerous items is the one that sits quietly in many rooms, an image or object believed to be holy, but which is either unblessed, distorted in form, or improperly sourced. These are the kinds of items that do not attract grace, but block it. They become spiritual static, preventing the Virgin Mary from fully entering the atmosphere of the home. It may be a plastic rosary, mass-produced with no reverence or spiritual intention. It may be a Marian statue with unnatural proportions or exaggerated expressions that confuse rather than console. It may be a candle labeled as devotional, but sold in shops that mix Catholic symbolism with New Age energy practices. Padre Pio warned that the enemy often hides behind the familiar. That which appears religious is not always truly sacred. A home can look like it honors Mary while unknowingly rejecting her presence through objects that grieve her immaculate heart. This is not about superstition. It is about spiritual clarity. Just as a window must be cleaned to allow light to pass through, so too must a home be spiritually purified to allow the Virgin's graces to flow. Padre Pio would remind the faithful that a blessed image is a doorway, but an unblessed one is only a picture. Worse, if that image was created without reverence, if the artist distorted the holiness of Mary's face, her garments, her posture, it becomes not a symbol of heaven, but a veil over it. The enemy uses subtlety. A rosary in the wrong color, one long associated with occult groups or ideological causes. A prayer card that includes symbols foreign to Catholic tradition. A sculpture with origins in anonymous marketplaces with unknown spiritual backgrounds. These are not neutral. They carry the weight of their creation. Padre Pio believed deeply in the principle that spiritual objects carry spiritual fingerprints. A sacramental created with love and reverence becomes a vessel of protection. One created with vanity, mockery, or careless intent can become an opening for confusion or spiritual disturbance. In May, the spiritual air grows thin, grace descends more freely, the Virgin draws near to homes that call on her name with sincerity. But where her image is dishonored, where devotional objects are treated. With casual hands or placed without prayer, she may pause at the threshold. She does not enter where she is not welcomed with purity. A single object placed with thoughtlessness can turn a prayerful room into a spiritually blocked space. Not cursed, but closed. Padre Pio once said that even angels will withdraw from a home where holy things are mocked, neglected, or corrupted. He encouraged the faithful to examine their spaces with spiritual discernment. What hangs on your walls? What lies on your shelf or bedside table? Have these things been blessed? Do. They carry the fragrance of prayer or the dust of indifference. This is why May is the perfect time to purify not only the heart but the room, to walk through the home and look again. That Marian medal, was it ever blessed? That image above the bed, does it truly reflect the Virgin as she appears in our tradition, or is it a sentimental fantasy? That candle, does it carry the intention of light, or is it only decoration? Spiritual blessing is not about aesthetics, it is about truth. What is pure invites purity, what is false repels the light. Padre Pio knew this well, and he pleaded with his spiritual children to remove the objects that create silence in heaven. Because sometimes the reason your prayer feels dry, your sleep disturbed, or your peace absent is not because you are far from God, but because something in your room is closer to darkness than you realize. And so the invitation begins. Before May 13th arrives, take inventory. Examine every item with the eyes of the soul. Ask for discernment. And where there is uncertainty, remove or replace. Better to have one blessed crucifix than 10 unblessed images. Better an empty wall than one that blocks heaven's hand. The Virgin Mary watches with tenderness, but also with sorrow, when her children surround themselves with things that close the door she longs to enter. Let your room speak to heaven. Let it echo holiness, not confusion. Let it be a place where the Queen of May finds rest. Every year as May begins, thousands of faithful Catholics set up their altars, light candles, and begin their Marian devotions with good intentions. Flowers are placed with love, prayers are whispered with longing, and homes are adorned with images of the Virgin. Yet, despite all of this external beauty, Padre Pio warned of a critical spiritual mistake that many continue to make without realizing it, one that weakens the graces of the entire month. It is not an error of omission, but of assumption, the belief that exterior gestures alone are enough to draw down heaven. The mistake is subtle and deceptively innocent. It happens when May becomes routine, when Marian devotion turns into a seasonal performance rather than a sacred offering. People repeat prayers mechanically, without meditation. They light candles without pausing in reverence. They place images of Mary without blessing them, or without truly honoring the one those images represent. This is not devotion, it is decoration. And Padre Pio taught that the Blessed Mother does not respond to empty gestures. She responds to hearts. He once said that the Virgin is not moved by routine, but by fire. A soul that loves her must burn with purity, not merely observe the correct forms. During May, heaven leans low, watching to see not just what is said or done, but how it is offered. The heart matters more than the ritual. When people forget this, they commit the very mistake that drives away the graces Mary is eager to pour out. Padre Pio warned that many Catholics allow May to begin like every other month, without consecration, without intentionality, without a spiritual offering. They fail to recognize that the first days of May are not casual, they are sacred thresholds. To miss them is like standing at the gate of a garden but never entering. He taught that those who treat the beginning of May like any other time are spiritually asleep. They light candles with their hands but not with their hearts. They honor Mary with flowers but not with transformation. Another mistake he identified is the division of devotion and life. People often isolate Mary to the prayer corner, while allowing bitterness, gossip, resentment, and worldly distractions to fill the rest of their home. But Mary cannot be compartmentalized. She is not a symbol, she is a presence. To invite her in May means to open every door to her, not just one shelf. The mistake is to pray to her, but not resemble her. To say, Hail Mary, yet live in a way that contradicts her virtues. Many also fall into distraction. They pray the rosary while scrolling their phone or with their minds drifting into work, stress, or entertainment. Padre Pio called this a silent wound to the Virgin's heart. He said that distracted devotion may still be heard by heaven, but it is like a song sung out of tune. It lacks harmony, and it lacks power. The enemy rejoices when our lips move, but our souls are absent, especially in May when Mary listens. More closely, these distracted offerings miss the moment of divine visitation, and then there is the mistake of spiritual procrastination. I'll pray later. I'll fix my altar tomorrow. I'll make my consecration next week. Padre Pio was clear. The enemy does not need you to reject devotion. He only needs you to delay it. This is how grace is lost, through delay, not denial. The Virgin waits, but time does not. May passes, and with it opportunities that cannot be recovered. Heaven visits the prepared. The mistake is not being ready. Finally, one of the gravest mistakes is turning devotion into merit. People believe that if they offer prayers or flowers to Mary, they earn blessings, as if grace were a transaction. But Mary is not a machine. She is a mother. She gives, not in exchange for effort, but in response to love. Padre Pio said that many fail to receive blessings because their devotion is self-centered. They pray for comfort, but do not offer conversion. They ask for help without asking how to grow in holiness. They treat May as a spiritual festival, but not a personal transformation. This is why so many finish May feeling the same as they began, because they made the mistake of doing, not becoming. True Marian devotion is not about filling a calendar. It is about letting Mary shape your soul. Padre Pio called May a spiritual workshop where Mary chisels away what is impure and polishes what is holy. But she can only do this if she is truly welcomed, not just with words, but with surrender. To correct this mistake, one must start again, even now. It is not too late. Mary does not keep a scorecard. She responds to sincerity, even if it arrives. On the final day, what matters is not how perfectly you began, but whether you now begin with your whole heart. Padre Pio taught that every soul has a window of grace, and May is filled with them. But to receive them, the heart must be open, attentive, and empty of pride. The mistake of May is not failing to honor Mary. It is failing to love her with depth. It is forgetting that she watches not just from the altar, but from heaven, waiting, not for offerings, but for hearts. And once she receives one truly and completely, she brings with her blessings that no other month can give. In the quiet pages of a little worn leather journal belonging to a parish priest from southern Italy, there lies a single story written in rushed, uneven script, unlike the rest of his careful notes and sermon drafts. It was a memory he could not forget, one that continued to echo through his thoughts every May, especially around the days leading to the 13th. He never named the family in public, nor revealed their town, but the events, recorded faithfully, served as both a testimony and a warning. The priest had been invited one spring evening to bless a home at the edge of a farming village. It was a simple place, clean, quiet, and surrounded by olive trees. The couple who lived there had recently returned to practicing their faith after years of indifference, and May had inspired them to set up a Marian altar in their bedroom. When the priest arrived, the sun was already dipping behind the hills, and the golden hour gave the entire home a sacred hush. The couple led him upstairs to show him their altar. It stood near the window, draped in lace, with small flowers and a candle already lit. But as soon as the priest entered the room, a strange heaviness overcame him. It wasn't visible in the space, but in his spirit. Something was not right. He said nothing, not wanting to alarm them, but his eyes fell immediately on the statue of the Virgin in the center of the altar. It was unfamiliar. Mary's face was serene, yet her eyes seemed almost too dark. Her hands were positioned in an unusual way, more commanding than inviting. Her garments shimmered faintly, with an unnatural shade of silver that reminded him more of ceremonial robes from distant cultures than of the familiar icons of his faith. The family said they had ordered it online from a website that sold rare, devotional objects from around the world. It had arrived just before May began, and they believed it was a sign. But the priest felt a coldness around the statue. That night, he returned home unsettled. He opened his breviary to pray, but could not focus. Something gnawed at him. He returned to the house the next day with holy water and offered to bless the entire space. As he prayed, he watched the flame of the candle flicker wildly near the statue, though the air in the room was still. It was then he asked permission to take the statue for examination. After consulting with a fellow priest, more experienced in sacred art and spiritual discernment, they identified disturbing inconsistencies in the statue's features. Though crafted with skill, it bore symbolic details not consistent with any approved Marian depiction: an inverted flower motif, eyes painted with an unnatural sheen, and an inscription beneath the base in a stylized script the priest could not trace to any known language. The spiritual expert warned him that certain objects, even when appearing religious, can carry an oppressive presence if created outside the light of truth. Not every image invites grace, some only mimic its appearance. The couple agreed to remove the statue and replace it with a traditional image, blessed by the church. But in the days following its removal, they confessed something strange. During the 2 weeks the statue had been in their home, they experienced sudden fatigue, frequent arguments, restless sleep, and a tension between them that they couldn't explain. They had assumed it was normal stress. Only after its removal did peace begin to return. Their sleep deepened, their moods softened. Even their prayer life felt different, less heavy, more open. The wife said she wept one evening before the new image. Not from fear, but because for the first time she felt truly seen by the Virgin. The priest never wrote the story to cause fear. He wrote it as a reminder. The sacred is real, and so is the counterfeit. In May especially, when homes are filled with candles and flowers, and hearts reach upward to Mary, the enemy seeks to sow confusion not through open rebellion, but through subtle imitation. Padre Pio himself had warned that the devil disguises himself not always in horror, but in false light. And when the faithful are careless or overly curious, when they let beauty or novelty override discernment, they can unintentionally welcome the wrong presence. In his journal, the priest ended the entry with one final note, circled twice in ink. May must begin with light, and light must be tested. It was his way of reminding himself, and anyone who might later read his words, that no devotional act is neutral. Every object, every gesture, every image either opens the soul or closes it. In the month of Mary, that truth becomes more urgent than ever. Before May 13th arrives, a date marked by heavenly significance due to the first apparition of the Virgin, Mary and Fatima, Catholics are urged not only to prepare their hearts, but also their physical spaces. Padre Pio often taught that a soul cannot live in grace if its dwelling is in disarray, not just physically, but spiritually. The home becomes a mirror of the soul, and nowhere is that more evident than in the bedroom, the most intimate, vulnerable space where the body rests, the mind dreams, and often unseen spiritual battles are fought. Preparing this space is not a superstition. It is a spiritual discipline rooted in the Church's ancient understanding of sacramentality and sacred order. The first and most overlooked step is silence. A home cluttered with constant noise, television, music, unchecked conversation, rarely gives space for spiritual reflection. In the days leading up to May 13th, Catholics are encouraged to choose at least one evening to silence the room intentionally. Turn off all devices, light a candle, invite the Holy Spirit to reveal what does not belong. In this sacred quiet, the soul can begin to see what it has previously ignored. Next is discernment. Not every object in a room is spiritually neutral. Padre Pio warned that sentimental items can sometimes carry spiritual weight, especially if they are associated with sin, emotional trauma, or practices contrary to the faith. This includes books, jewelry, artwork, souvenirs, and even gifts. If an item inspires fear, confusion, or excessive attachment, it should be set aside. If its origin is uncertain or connected to superstitious practices, even unknowingly, it becomes a breach through which spiritual heaviness can enter. May 13th is not a day for spiritual naivety. It is a day to be clean and intentional. Following discernment comes cleansing. The room should be physically cleaned with reverence, dust removed, linens washed, the air refreshed. Then comes the spiritual cleansing. Holy water, if available, should be sprinkled in each corner of the room while praying, "Come, Holy Spirit, purify this place. May it be a dwelling of light." A crucifix may be held during this act, or the rosary may be prayed slowly throughout. Padre Pio emphasized that holy water terrifies the enemy. It is not merely a ritual, it is a spiritual act of reclaiming sacred territory. The bed where the body rests should not be overlooked. Sheets and pillows should be clean, but more importantly, the bed itself should be offered in prayer. Lord, may this be a place of holy rest, of healing, of dreams protected by your angels. It is not uncommon for people to experience dark or disturbing dreams around spiritually charged dates like May 13th. Preparing the bed through prayer and protection can become a shield against such disturbances. On a small table or shelf, the faithful are encouraged to create a Marian corner, a simple image or statue of the Virgin Mary, one that reflects purity, tenderness, and tradition, should be placed with care. A white or blue cloth beneath it is appropriate. Next to it, a candle or small lamp can be lit each night. Flowers are not required, but even one fresh bloom offered in love transforms the space. Padre Pio once said that Mary walks through homes that remember her, especially in May. This Marian space is not decoration. It is an invitation. On the night before May 13th, one final step must be taken, an act of consecration. Kneeling in that room, the individual should consecrate the space to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. It can be a formal prayer, or it can be from the heart. The intention is what matters. Mother, I give you this room, this place where I sleep, where I wake, where I carry my burdens in silence. Guard it with your mantle. Let no darkness remain. Let only grace dwell here. This moment seals the preparation. It marks the room as hers. It is also recommended to place a blessed sacramental, such as a small crucifix, a scapular, or a medal of Mary, under the pillow or near the bed. These physical signs of faith often become hidden spiritual anchors, protecting the soul even during sleep. Padre Pio, who himself endured many nocturnal battles with darkness, never slept without sacramentals nearby. To prepare your room before May 13th is to make room for grace. It is to say to heaven, this space belongs to you. And in doing so, a shift begins, both visible and invisible. Peace enters, clarity returns, and the room, like the soul, becomes ready to receive what only heaven can give. In the days leading up to May 13th, the Church recalls with trembling reverence the moment when the Queen of Heaven opened the heavens above Fatima. It was not merely a historical apparition. It was a divine intervention, a celestial inspection of the world's spiritual state. Padre Pio often warned that the Virgin is not a passive observer. She is a mother who watches with piercing love, a guardian who sees not only our actions, but the posture of our hearts. In this sacred season, she draws near with heightened sensitivity, not to judge with condemnation, but to awaken and protect those who have forgotten the weight of their choices. Why is the Virgin watching? Because May is the month consecrated to her by centuries of devotion and suffering. It is when the veil between heaven and earth thins and grace flows more freely, but also when the enemy seeks to distort that flow. The Virgin's gaze then is protective. It is maternal, but it is also demanding. She looks for hearts that burn with sincerity, not routine. She watches for homes that are prepared, not just adorned. She listens not to words alone, but to silence, filled with longing. Padre Pio believed that the Virgin's presence in May is like that of a hidden guest walking through the world, stopping at each home that dares to open its doors in faith. She watches how her son is treated. She watches how the rosary is prayed, if it is alive or lifeless. She watches how we decorate our altars, if they are offerings of love or displays for others to see. She sees the distractions, the indifference, and the coldness that so often replace devotion, but she also sees the quiet tears, the hidden sacrifices, and the hearts that struggle yet still turn toward her. Her gaze is not like ours. It penetrates, it purifies. According to the mystics, even a glance from Mary can disarm a soul hardened by pride. In Fatima, she said, "Do not offend the Lord our God any more, for he is already so much offended." And yet those words were spoken with eyes full of mercy. That same gaze is turned toward the faithful now. It is an invitation and a warning. Those who meet her eyes with openness receive light. Those who hide in the shadows of sin will feel discomfort. Padre Pio described it as a holy fire, one that does not destroy, but refines. In a world filled with surveillance, the Virgin's watching is something entirely different. It is not for control, but for intercession. It is not suspicious, but sorrowful. When she watches a soul, it is because she longs to lead it away from danger. She watches the doors of homes to see if they are open to grace or cluttered with spiritual debris. She watches bedrooms to see whether they have become temples of rest or prisons of anxiety. She watches family tables to see if prayers rise or only screens glow. The Virgin's watchfulness is also deeply connected to her role at the foot of the cross. She did not look away when her son suffered. She did not flinch when the world collapsed around her. She stood steadfast, and now she watches again, not because she doubts us, but because she remembers what he endured. Every time we desecrate a sacred space, neglect prayer, or speak his name in haste, her heart feels again the nails. Her watching is a call to remember what love has already done for us. May 13th is not merely a memorial. It is a living moment, and those who understand this recognize the Virgin not only as Queen of Heaven, but as the watcher of souls. Her eyes are upon the world with urgency. Padre Pio taught that those who live may, with intentional reverence, come under her mantle in ways they cannot fully see, but will deeply feel. Peace, clarity, and protection become their inheritance, but the Virgin cannot enter where she is not welcomed. She cannot bless what is closed to her. That is why she watches, not to intrude, but to wait. Every candle lit with love, every prayer spoken with trembling, every act of reparation whispered in the quiet of night, she sees them all. And to those who say, "Mother, I see you too. She draws near with power that transforms homes into havens. Her watching is not passive, it is providential, and to those who welcome it, May becomes not just a month of flowers, but a season of visitation. A time when the Queen walks silently through the hearts of her children, leaving behind blessings that linger long after her footsteps fade. Tonight, stand at the doorway of your room. Look not just with your eyes, but with your conscience. Ask yourself, would Padre Pio sleep here? Would Mary smile here? If the answer is no, then change it before May 13th, because something sacred is coming and someone holy is watching.